All right. This is the episode I've lost count of Badr Ball. I'm actually going to count and number them again at some point, the next videos. This is my first video in 3 months. Um, so, hi. And I'm doing an episode that I probably should have done many, many, many months ago, but I'm finally doing an Arsenal episode, seeing as they're one of the big stories of this season. And we actually did one of these almost a year and a half ago, or like something like that. Yeah,
I think
almost
two
a year and a
years
half
ago.
ago. 2 years ago, maybe. Yeah, 2 years ago, uh, about Arsenal with Mashir and Abdul. Um, and Arsenal are very different than they were back then. And I'm going to be a lot less smug than I was back then because there's a lot less to be smug about. So, welcome, guys. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here too. Yeah, it's been a while.
All right. So, um, let's get down to it. You're top of the league for now. Uh, no, but you are top of the league. Okay, 32 games in, like it's business time. You know, this is not some fake chat. I've seen a lot of people have compared Paracelsus has compared you guys to Milan 20 in 2020 and 2021. No, like you guys, we never made it to the business end of the season in the title challenge. You guys are there, like you're in it. You're really competing. Um, you have spent a lot of money over the past 2 summers to put you in this position, despite having a really, really young squad, a really, really inexperienced manager in the grand scheme of things, a manager who I personally did not trust or rate at all, and I have been proven wrong. And I will. That's the first thing I have to admit that I was wrong about Arteta and about his style of football. Um, so the positives. Tell me, you guys give me your opinions on how the season has went. So I'll start with Michelle, I guess.
Yep. I think like that beginning, like before the World Cup period where like there's no real pressure on the team, that's just like numbers wise we were just far and ahead, the best. And like I think like after that, like the numbers have kind of equalized, and now City is pretty much better, and a lot of underlyings and like goals against, goals for. But I think before that World Cup period, we were just flying. That was where we were at our best, and City couldn't like really string together like huge win streaks at that time. And like Jesus and Zinchenko just looked like they were just flying. Like, but since the World Cup, I think we slowed down a bit, especially when Jesus got injured during the World Cup. And then Eddie came in, but Eddie did score. But we definitely changed our shape a bit to accommodate for Eddie. And then like for we got those three bad results like against Brentford, I want to say against City and that little period. But then we came back again. I think like one thing's for sure, this team has shown that they fight, like whether it's for streaks and just in games itself, like when we're losing against Bournemouth, when we were losing against Villa, they show fight to come back. um and yeah, like we are very different from where we were 2 years ago. We were discussing like whether Arteta is the guy. I think most people will say that he is the guy now. Most Arsenal fans for sure. At that time it was probably like 60-40, like 60 against 44.
Mhm.
um but yeah, I think one of the big differences, we were like back then we were still, I remember I was watching the clips back then for the first video. We were talking about how we were too conservative. Bader was saying that we were thinking about not conceding before scoring. But the big flip now is that it's the other way around. Right now we try to control games. We try to score, and we defend the way City do, in that you just keep the ball way more than the other team, and that's how we defend. Obviously that's changed when Bader wanted to first make this videos like before the Liverpool game, and our whole outlook on the team was different. I think we were like slight favorites on the odds to win the league,
Yeah.
and then that's just gone down and down and down. But I think the change is that we haven't defended transitions as well, and our set piece defending has been actually pretty consistently bad after the World Cup. but,
Yeah.
but still, like I think I'm not gonna write obituaries yet. I think we still have to play City. They were previewing that. We beat City, and I think we built a huge platform. And I think like a lot of people say like if you in a league title, you rarely get that. Okay, one game switches everything. Like it's very rare,
Mhm.
and like 9 times out of 10, every manager takes that easily. Like if you have one game to flip everything, that's you take it. You take a final over like waiting and trotting through a lot of games. So yeah, I think they have a huge opportunity to flip the script because like in the odds and everything, they're saying that Arsenal's pretty much out for the count.
Yeah, with regards to that, you guys get the opportunity, like you said, you guys get the opportunity that Liverpool very rarely ever had, which is to get one-on-one with City this late in the season, where it's like it's still in your hands. Like, okay, fine, if they win their games in hand, they're ahead of you, but you could go beat them, and then it's back. You know what I'm saying? You get that opportunity, and that's huge. Every team would kill for that at this point. So Abdul, you could ask the same question, like, how do you see the season, and what were your highlights, lowlights, and so on?
It's definitely been like an amazing season. Like it's by far the most enjoyable I've had as an Arsenal fan in my entire life. I was quite excited going into this season because of the way that we ended last season. I know it ended poorly, but I still saw so many good signs in this team from, I would say, generally from like early last season to around March. I saw huge signs in this team that we can potentially mount a title charge in the future. I just felt that this season maybe we wouldn't have the firepower, or maybe City would be too strong. But we've shown clearly that we're more than good enough to be here. And the last 3 games have like really depressed me so much. But I know that this team has capacity to at least end the season strongly. Like, whatever happens tomorrow, the next 5 games, I just want them to end the season strongly. If we get a draw, for example, it's in their hands, but they have to win all of their games to make sure that they win the league. Assuming we win all of our games. So whatever happens tomorrow, if we lose, then I think that's a huge psychological. Go all out again. If we win this match, we know it's in our hands. So yeah, I can't really be too down on the players too much because again they've made us proud this season.
So I went through the fixture list, and I just want to ask you a few questions. First of all, who's your season MVP? It's clear to me, but like I want to see what you guys think.
Think it's Saka. A lot of people. I don't know who else. I guess Martinelli is a good shout. Odegaard is a good shout. I could say Saliba as well, but I think Saka is he's the MVP. He's been like double-digit, double-double, as they say. I think in every important game he's showed up, like United, for example, just right off the bat. He's just like every game, United away and home. That was like crazy. Just to, he's made the jump. I thought he made the jump last season, and I was pretty confident that he'd get even better, and I feel like he still could get better, which sounds crazy given how good already he is. A lot of the players, honestly, in Arsenal are like that, where I could see them getting even better than they are now. But yeah, I think Saka's MVP. I would hope that he gets the PFA Player of the Year as well, but if City win, then they'd probably give it to Haaland or something. But if we win, then I'd hope Saka would win that. I think he's deserving too.
He could get Young Player of the Year. He hasn't gotten that yet, right?
That the Young Player of the Year is just whatever. Like they give it to like under 24s.
He's not getting it over the dude with 40 goals. Like he's just not.
He has the Golden Boot, right? That's fine.
Fair. Okay, Abdul, your season MVP is the same, Saka as well.
Yeah, same. It's weird because it's constantly changed throughout the season, which is kind of a good thing. But like early on, I was thinking, Saka was really good. Then like a 10-game period was unplayable. Then it was like Saka, Martinelli's been really good this season. But I think over the course of the season, I think Saka's probably been the most consistent throughout the season. the goals, the assists. He has like there was like the stat before the Palace game where every goal he scored was either a goal to put ahead or an equalizer.
Yeah.
You know. And almost all of his assists have been that way as well. So he gets constantly good at it. Like he's very clutch. He comes alive in the big moments. Literally, the only thing I could say is that Holland probably will win Player of the Year, but Saka probably will get Young Player of the Year, and I would still shamelessly celebrate that, even if he don't win the league, just because he deserves some sort of accolade just for how good he's been this season.
I agree with that. I only ask. To me, it's Saka as well, but like I only ask because at certain points of the season, I felt like a lot of people were saying Odegaard, and he was great. Don't get me wrong. Like they're all. There's been plenty of great players, and then this past few like weeks and like month, I've seen a lot of Martinelli because he's been showing up in these games and stuff. But yeah, I do think it's been Saka because he's just like he's the metronome. He's the guy what you're getting from. And I do think actually like some people say, oh, he doesn't have. I've seen this like as a insult to him. It's like, oh, what does he do great, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that's kind of lazy at this point because again, he's 21. He's not supposed to be doing anything great, right? But he does everything at an 8 out of 10 level, which in itself is greatness. You know what I'm saying? Doing everything really, 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 really well is greatness. Like I just think that's a lazy criticism against him because he's 21 years old. Like it's insane that he's this good to begin with. A question that ties into this actually is, who do you think Arsenal's best player will be in 5 years? Like, is it also Saka, or I feel like Odegaard at that point he's a little older. He'll be in his real prime. At that point. What do you guys think? I'll start with you.
I think it's Saka still. I think he has the highest ceiling of all the players in the team. Martinelli, I think, has a really high ceiling, and I don't think he's nowhere near his peak yet. And Saka is the same. I think Saka has is high praise because I think Salah is like one of the best there's ever been in that position, and I think that's his ceiling. Like he could be as good as Salah. I think he has the physical nous, the out of ball stuff, the creativity. He has it all. Just needs to polish his finishing and get consistent in the box. Because even still now, like if you point to one flaw of Saka, I'd say like if he has a lot of time in the box, he kind of overthinks it, which is like natural. Like that's just he's at his age and like just in this development, it makes sense. But I think when he's even more decisive, he's gonna hit that like Salah, prime Salah. I think right at the moment he's better than Salah, but which is debatable.
Okay,
but,
okay.
Yeah.
I don't agree, but okay.
But yeah, I think Saka. But yeah, Odegaard has a good shout for sure because I don't think he's at his ceiling either. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think Odegaard has made like a huge leap from last year to this year, or actually even within the season, where it's like, everybody begs him like, oh my God, can this guy just shoot like every once in a while? And this, like in the middle of the season, there was like a period like, okay, like he's actually taking control. He knows when his moment is, and he's not afraid of taking it. Like, yeah, I thought that was big from him. Abdul, what do you think?
Yeah, I think going with Odegaard, like, it's crazy because like a lot of people had like slight criticism. I mean, he had a pretty productive season, but this season, what I've really been interested in is the fact that he's got 12 goals, which is like very, very good for attacking midfield. Especially all from open play as well. It's not like he's getting through penalties or anything like that. And I think also he's got more assists than last season. He can still get. I'm honestly hoping he gets like 10 plus assists, just because he gets a lot of like pre-assists and such. But like, I think eventually he'll become a player that just looks for the final ball more often than not. But honestly, the player he is right now, he's excellent. I'm glad he's the captain of the club, and he's become a lot more responsible on the ball. So like last season, there was always a good joke that him and Saka just run off to the right wing and just play with each other. But this season, he often comes inside a lot. He just moves it to the left, tries more shots. He's a lot more involved in build-up as well. He dropped Steve a lot more, which was a criticism I had of him last season. So yeah, honestly, like I've been very impressed with like a lot of players' jumps this season. Gabriel, for example, early in the season there was a bit of sloppiness to him, but October, November, up until now, he's been phenomenal. And he's played at the level that I expect him to play at. Maybe next season, hopefully like a bit more experience under his belt and whatnot. But honestly, like I've been very pleasantly surprised by how a lot of players have exploded this season. Like gone up to Odegaard's probably like around world class level now. Or Saka for me is Martinelli. I think is like pretty much like very close. Maybe give it another season and he'll be there. So yeah, I'm just pleasantly surprised by everybody. But yeah, Saka's been our best player.
So, okay, favorite moment of the season. Each of you guys, you can pick. I think you guys have a big selection of ones you can pick, so I'll let you guys go.
Nelson versus Bournemouth, I can't lie.
Okay, both of you had that?
Yeah.
The unholy steam let out. Like, I can't replicate it.
Yeah.
I thought I would have predicted Nketiah versus United. That was the one for me.
That's like
where I
That's
was
the
like,
one.
that was the first time I was like,
literally
oh
super
shit,
close.
they might actually win this thing.
Like,
Yeah, I think like I like
Yeah.
the Eddie moment too because like he's very underrated. I feel like still like among Arsenal fans, the numbers he put up in his like little time is nuts. Like
I
even
love
just like
him.
goals and then like even like underlines, his numbers were really good. I think he like could start for like 16 to 17 of the Premier League teams. Like he's that level, and to have him as a bench option is just crazy. And the fact that he's not our first pick off the bench is Trossard still. Yeah,
Dude,
just shows.
I'd take him at Milan in like a heartbeat. Like I always
Yeah.
say, you guys have him and Balogun, and I'm like, if they ever decide to sell either of them, like please,
Yeah,
whichever one, I don't care. Like I'll take either of them. Arsenal are on course, right, to have 7 to 8 players if Thomas Partey plays the next 6 games, right, that have played more than 30 90s, full 90s, right. City are on course for 2 to 4 if Haaland and De Bruyne play the next however many games, right? Bearing in mind that this season is probably the most congested season in probably history, right? Given that we had the World Cup in the middle and the congestion from COVID and all that kind of stuff. Very, very congested season. My question is, that's a big difference between you guys having 7 to 8 of those players and City having 2 to 4. Do you think Arteta like spread the squad too thin? Like, do you think that there was times, this is my personal opinion, I'll say it, there was times in the season that Reece Nelson should have played, should have actually started some games. Now, I'm not saying start them all the time. I'm not saying full-on rotation. I'm just saying every once in a while you can give your players. You guys, your squad got better after January, especially after January, with Trossard and Jorginho and those signings. But I get that. But even before that, you still have, you had Nketiah. Gabriel Jesus never got a break until he got injured, right? Reece Nelson never played, things like that. Like, do you guys think that those rotations should have been made earlier in the season to maybe reduce the load off those guys?
I would say yeah. It was tricky because we had quite a few bench players injured. So like Nelson probably would have played a lot more, but he started the season with an injury, and I think he came back around October, November, and then we got a few minutes, like when he scored against Forest, for example. And then during the mid-season break and during the World Cup, he got injured in the final mid-season friendly against Juventus, and that was a real blow because in the first few games in January, we actually had like a very weak bench. For example, against Nassau at home, we only really had Vieira on the bench as an attacking option, and the rest were like a bunch of kids that haven't played for Arsenal and mainly defensive players like Holding and whatnot. So around that period, we actually choose, and he rotated quite well in the Europa League, but I would have done variations and such. But some key players had like minutes. Tomiyasu would play quite a lot during the October-November period, which was mainly due to Stamper having an injury. Tierney played a couple of games, maybe could have played a few more. Started a game or two, I feel, just because Jesus played so many minutes before the World Cup.
Mhm.
Post World Cup, I think he could have rotated a bit more because we had more and more options. Trossard came in for Eddie when he got injured, and obviously Holding came in for Saliba. Tomiyasu would have come in for either Saliba or White if need be. But, So it's been a bit unfortunate because we've had key injuries at like very unfortunate moments, like Nelson or Tomiyasu or Saliba. But I definitely think he could have rotated a little bit.
With those numbers that you had for minutes, that only includes the Premier League, right?
Yeah. All in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the Premier League, I honestly think the rotation was fine.
Okay.
I think at a certain point we realized that okay, we could actually win this thing.
Mhm.
So I don't think you could play around when that happens. Like other teams like Chelsea, they have a new 11 every other game. I don't think we have that same luxury. I think at a certain point you have to lock down your best 11. I don't think you have to, but as you said, like Nketiah to Jesus, for example, it's unfortunate, but like I think for how we play our best when Jesus is on the field.
Okay.
So if you start Nketiah, I think you lose a lot in possession, as much as I love him. So off the bench, he makes sense. And off the bench, I feel like a lot of players did get a lot of minutes. And I think he managed those minutes well. I think one person who doesn't get managed that well is Saka for a lot of seasons.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate because I think it's slightly because we have no left-footed right winger or just a right winger who's comfortable there at all. Like I know a lot of people think Reece should play there or Martinelli. I don't think they do. Their body orientation doesn't seem right to me on the right. I feel like the way they play, the ball rolls, and the way they dribble is much more effective when they're cutting in. They're going inside than going on their outside, which is a rarer type of winger now, anyways. I think, and Marquinhos was supposed to be the kind of guy who rotates with Saka, but I think we realized that he's probably not ready for this level yet, and we loaned him out, which is makes sense. We even tried Vieira on the right wing, like in the Europa League, which I think he lacks the physicality to play there. I think he's well in those pockets in the half space than holding with. So yeah, I think Saka is the least rotated and like the least well managed, but in general I agree with a lot of way Arteta rotated, to be honest. Like City having such fewer players like with this many minutes, that's just Guardiola and what he has in his disposal, right? Like one game he could play Rico Lewis, one game he could play like people forget KDB was dropped for like 3 to 4 games in the middle of the season, like randomly. And like I think City have the platform to do that. They have a lot of players who could just interchange, while we don't have that luxury.
Right. Okay, going into that, the luxuries that City have and that you guys aren't afforded the same things. This summer, right? You signed Gabriel Jesus for 52 million, Zinchenko for 35, Fabio Vieira for 35, Kivior, and this is January now, Kivior for 25, Trossard for 24, and Jorginho for 11, right? So, first of all, how do you feel about that business, right? Then, do you wish other positions maybe were prioritized or certain profiles were prioritized over the ones that you guys sent?
I think all those signings have been pretty great so far, except like the question mark is on Vieira the most, I'd say. I think Vieira is definitely a project player, quote unquote. Like he's there for the long term, like to see if he's gonna be that guy. Primarily, I think as a backup to Odegaard on the right center mid position, because he looks much more natural when he's cutting in. I feel like he's definitely the way Tomiyasu is a backup to White and the way Tierney is a backup to Zinchenko. I think Vieira was supposed to be that for Odegaard and just fill in whenever Xhaka is injured. But yeah, that Xhaka position in general is kind of definitely vacant right now. Like that guy plays every 90. Like and we pray just he doesn't get injured. And I think that's a little risky. But I think like getting every position you want in a window isn't even possible for City. Like even
No,
like
of course not.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm just saying, like, would you have rather instead of a Fabio Vieira, you get somebody in that Xhaka position? It's a preference question. You can't get everything, but
Yeah.
would you have rather that over this, or
Um,
are you fine with the way they did it?
I'm fine the way like obviously we missed out on Paqueta. I think
Mhm.
that was I think he definitely would have fit our system to a T. Like he's that kind of box to box 8, left-footed. He just would have he could have filled in even the wings. He could have filled in for Odegaard, and I think he could have played the Xhaka role as well. Even though I think he is more comfortable on the right, but I think that he could have worked it out. Um, we did miss out on Bruno Guimaraes even before that last season in Jan. I think he definitely would have fit in a lot of places, but generally I do. I think Edu did do really well. Like for example, Jesus not being as missed as he was pretty insane. I feel like people don't mention it, but like Jesus was literally like MVP. I think he before the World Cup he was MVP pretty much. Like it was him and Saka. Like
Oh, wow.
he was top. He had, I think 10 goals and assists before the World Cup.
Okay.
Um, but then he gets injured, and I think there are people who are saying that we're out of it then.
That's
Like
true. That's
yeah,
true. Yeah.
there are people who are saying, okay, that's it, write obituaries. But the way we managed that situation with Trossard and then Nketiah is obviously there, and then he was amazing. And then he got injured, and then Trossard came in. I feel like people like forget that. Wow, that we overcame that really well.
Mhm.
And then Jorginho came in for Partey for a couple of games as well. Again, very very important position in that pivot area. A lot of people doubted Jorginho, like rightfully in some ways, because we did see his flaws in those games. I think in transition, like if he misses that first tackle, he gets kind of deleted out of
Yeah.
a transition. But more often than not, he makes those tackles, and we have possession for 80% of the game, anyways. So I think it made sense. They made a calculated risk in that regard, and it worked out. But yeah, the place we're suffering now is obviously the Saliba getting injured, and I think, as I said, it was just unfortunate. Like Tomiyasu, should have been, it was Tomiyasu right back, and then White comes in, and it's just the back four from last season plus Zinchenko, and I think we would have been fine.
Yeah, I think in regards to you asked the question about a Xhaka, maybe buying a Xhaka replacement of sorts. I think honestly, when we don't have like a bottomless cash, so it's not as if we can just do this while also filling in other key areas. You know, striker was massively needed, left back was needed. I think we needed like better cover in some areas. Trossard has, essentially provided cover in like 3 or 4 different areas by now. So a player like that was massively needed. We didn't really have a lot of players that can play in multiple positions. Besides Saka, who now only plays right away. But yeah, honestly, I'm quite intrigued with Vieira. I think I've seen enough to know that he will be a good player in the future. The only thing is obviously he has like some raw aspects to his game. I think against Southampton was probably his least impressive game of the season. But I can't blame him too much because he wasn't expected to start, and I see him more as a right centre midfielder than a left. Just because I feel like, like Mash said, like he seems to have a better feel of the game, a better way of just cutting in, playing those passes on the right. Because there was a few moments in that game where he was moving to the right via rotations, and he switched to the left, and it looked really different. So, but honestly, I'm quite happy with Vieira. I think next season he'll be much better, and he's still really young. So I'm more than happy with that signing. I'm happy with Zinchenko signing, Jesus, Trossard. Jorginho was basically signed because Onana is gone for the rest of the season in January, and we have no real cover in DM, so we had to get somebody. And he wasn't even the first or second, maybe not even third choice in January. That's something we have to remember. Like, after so many players, like, okay, well, we have to get somebody. We got him. I literally had no complaint once I realized the severity of the situation and why we went after him. So, and hey, like, honestly, if you win the league, that moment against Villa, he's a legend, man. He's a legend. I don't care. He's a legend.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's all fair. I think personally, you guys, I'll say this in Arsenal's favor. I think they were as surprised as the rest of us are that they were able to compete for the title so bad. Like, and I think part of that you see, like, okay, Gabriel Jesus, Zinchenko, good age profiles, all both middle of their 20s, all cool, and they have proven pedigree, all that stuff. The Fabio Vieira signing is one of those like, okay, cool, he'll be good in 2 years or 1 or 2 years, and that's a signing you make if you're in a top four hunt, which is I think what they thought they were going to be in to begin the season, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think if you tell them that, hey, there's a title, you're going to be in match week 32, you're going to be going into a game against City, and there's a chance for a title, I don't think they would make that signing. I think they would make the Xhaka the Xhaka, not necessarily replacement, but like competition, or maybe a midfielder who could maybe play more profiles. The way that Trossard coming in January, the fact that he could play left wing, striker, and he could offer like multiple positions, that's so important. And the fact that he was ready and Premier League proven and right age and everything to hit the ground running. I think if you had told them that, they would have taken that 35 million from Fabio Vieira and gone in that direction, but for midfield,
Mm-hmm.
But again, you can't blame them for that because how can you? I don't think anybody could have expected the team in fifth to suddenly be first. That rarely ever happens. I'll say, what do you guys? I think. What do you guys think are the positions that need to be prioritized next season? And like, if you had one position to splash on, to really go like, okay, here's 80 million. Here's the number one option I want. I don't want to miss out on Declan Rice. I don't want to miss out on Caicedo. I don't want to miss out on Jude Bellingham, whoever it is. Right? Here's all the money, and I'm going all in on this position. What would it be?
I would say Caicedo. Or Lavia, Caicedo or Lavia. Those guys are just. Lavia is a bit better in possession, I'd say, and he's shown to be better in like his passing range, I'd say. But Caicedo, I feel, is better suits us because, well, actually, we could adjust according to Lavia, way Lavia plays. But Caicedo is similar to Partey in that he plays in a pivot. But we technically don't play in a pivot, but like somebody like Zinchenko comes in from the left and tucks in, so it kind of mimics a pivot. And I think Caicedo, he's better than Partey. I think he's one of the best DMs in the Premier League proven, as they say. I would definitely take him over a lot of other positions. But like if you take the thing is, I would normally answer maybe like a forward because I prefer spending on forwards more than midfield and defense.
Mhm.
But like, there's nobody very needed, I feel like, in those forward positions except for a backup for Saka, which shouldn't take that like premium money that you're saying.
Abdul, what do you think? So, Mashir says Caicedo, Thomas Partey, competition or replacement. Where would you prioritize, or what's the one guy that you say I want that guy and I want that position?
Yeah, similar positions, midfield. I think Caicedo would be amazing. My ideal one is Rice. I just think that he's someone who can. I mean, he could realistically just play where Xhaka does as well. But I think he's like the him or Caicedo would be like the perfect sixth replacement, should we say? I think I'm leaning more towards Rice because I just think he has a lot. I think he has a lot more to his. I think the way he carries the ball, he's a very clean ball winner. He's very underrated on the ball. Like when you see the way he moves with the ball, it's similar to like a regular old centre midfielder. He's not quite clunky like a regular defensive midfielder is. He's very light on his feet. And I think also just like he's very young, so is Caicedo. You buy that player, you hopefully have them for 6 years, 7 years, up until like they start to slow down. And yeah, like that's the kind of player that I would really want.
I feel like I already know the answer now to this based on what we've just said, but personally, one of my questions was, is Gabriel Jesus good enough as the striker to lead you to the promised land, right? Now, Mashir just said he was probably the MVP before the World Cup, which I'm not sure I agree with, but like I'm assuming Mashir, you believe in him fully, right?
Yeah.
So I asked that question in that with the frame of like you have this guy, you have Balogun who's coming back from who's scoring, probably going to end up with like 20 goals, right? Incredible, young talent, all that kind of stuff. And he seemingly, I don't know, all these reports are weird, so you never know. But like there's all these reporting that like he wants a starting spot. Okay. And Gabriel Jesus has his limitations. Like he will always, and at the beginning of the season, in that honeymoon period, when everybody was just like happy to be there, us men would just be like, I'm happy that this team is good, right? And he was missing big chances, but you were still winning. Everybody found it fine. But now, when it's the business end of the season, and he misses like one expected goals, like all by himself against Southampton, it's like it's not cute and cuddly anymore. It's like the business end of the season, like put the ball in the back of the net, dude, right? He's always had this limitation, even when he was at City, right? But as Mashir said, and as you guys both said, like he brings so much else, right? Is he worth all the headache for all he brings? Like, is he good enough to take you all the way? What do you guys think?
I definitely think he is, but like, isn't it like he's won 4 already, right? Like what?
No, but he's 1-4 as not the guy. Come on.
But, okay, yeah, but like I think the priority is to build a team. Well, the way our priority is, that if it looks like, is build a team like City where you don't have all your goals for one guy. Well, not City is different now because of Holland, but before that, their goals were spread out.
Right.
I think we're trying to emulate that and it's already been like that because of how the goals are spread out. You don't have to have one focal point, one like sort of, and it makes sense because he's not a focal point striker either.
Right.
But he can play that way, but it's underrated. His hold up is very good. But I do think he's good enough. Maybe I think he's good enough even playing for like the 38 games, like which he didn't do for City, for being real.
Yeah, I'm not concerned with like, is he good enough to get you 20 goals? Because as you've said, 20 goals does not equal title, right? Or 20 goals from your striker, does not equal title. But is he good to be the striker who starts every game or most games, and he takes you there?
Yeah, I think he definitely is. All the things out of the ball, I think it showed when Eddie was playing, who was already a great striker, and when it showed in our possession how we couldn't control games as much when Eddie was there versus when he was there, and how Martinelli and that whole left side basically just gets to a whole other level when Jesus is there. And I see a lot of this is good you brought this up, because I see a lot of Arsenal fans saying that we need to go to a traditional 9. Like
that's why I asked.
Yeah. Like we need a Kane. Well, Kane is a little different, but everybody uses Kane anyways, even though he's definitely not that. That guy is like in the center back. Anyways, like a Haaland or a Osimhen. And obviously Osimhen, you take Osimhen, obviously, but like I don't think that is like that's necessary to win the league, basically. For one big reason is that we've already shown that we could have a title winning or a title challenging team without that.
Right.
Just this season alone, underlyings wise, like this would win you the league in any other league and any other season if you didn't have like this monster City behind you. And because I think people forget the way we play and the why we're so dangerous to play against is because of the way they rotate the Martinelli and Jesus and Saka and Odegaard, the way they're rotating. It's not the way versus the way a traditional striker would rotate is not the same. That you wouldn't get that same fluency, you wouldn't get those triangles. You would sacrifice that for better. You wouldn't miss 1 XG worth of chances. Like a Haaland or an Osimhen probably just scores all those chances. But you sacrifice something else because of that. And I do think like, okay, fine. You could definitely think of a replacement for Jesus long term, but for right now, I don't think he's anywhere near the top 5 problems we have at the team. And I think he makes us better. Like even when you watch City now, a lot of the they're getting good again, but there was a point where they were struggling, and in possession they lose something with Haaland. Like
For
it's
sure.
true. Like
As opposed to Foden and Jesus, yeah.
yeah. So obviously we can't even get a Haaland type of monster machine who's just going to score all the XG. Every chance he gets is just in. So I think at that point, like, you just have a really good option in Jesus who improves us in possession and can score. Like, he can score.
Yeah.
It just, he's not like Haaland or some other generational striker like that.
Yeah, that's fair. Abdul, like, my thing with this is, I agree. You can win a title without the out and out, striker, right? The question I have, the reason this, I've seen obviously Arsenal fans discuss this, which is why I put the question. But the more I thought about it, and yeah, okay, City won the title twice without a guaranteed striker. They had Foden, they had De Bruyne, they had Gabriel Jesus, all at the false nine, right? Liverpool won it with Firmino, who is like anything but a standard striker, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could definitely win it. But the more I thought about it, I'm like, yes, they won it, but they won it in seasons where nobody else had it, right? So when City won, Liverpool didn't have it, right? And Liverpool are great, but they didn't have that one guy, the killer, or the killer striker, sorry. City now have that guy. City are going to start, as long as this guy is on their team, they're going to start every season with 40 goals. There's like the 0 points, 0 games played, 0 whatever, 40 goals are already on the board, right? That's the reality of having a guy as unbelievable as him, right? As Haaland. Can you compete with that? And I agree. At the beginning of the season, they were not playing that well. And they were at like what, an 80, I think I read it was like an 81-point pace, which is nowhere near what they're usually at. And since that, that uptick where they really got on a run, now they're like, okay, this is the City now we know.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that kind of scary? Isn't it scary that they were able to go at an 81-point pace when they were integrating this guy? And now it feels like he's in it. The system is good around him. Everybody knows how to get him involved at the right places. And now they're firing on all cylinders, and he just can't stop scoring. Like, isn't it scary? Doesn't it feel like you kind of have to be? Personally, for me, I don't think you necessarily have to have an out-and-out striker. Like, that's my question. That's my answer to this question. But I do feel like I don't think Gabriel Jesus is as good as Firmino was, for example.
Ooh.
That's my personal opinion. I know.
Ooh.
I had this debate with somebody else the other day, right? Personally, for me, I don't feel like Gabriel Jesus is as good as Firmino. Because, okay, they score at the same rate, right? They score similar. Like, they'll both get like 10 goals, whatever, like, and so on. But I felt Firmino was a much better presser at that time.
Oh.
Come on, man. Firmino was a monster.
Jesus is...
No, he's really good. Don't get me wrong. But I think he's a better presser, and I think he was better at link-up. Gabriel Jesus is better as a dribbler, right? And when he drifts to the left and all the things he allows Martinelli to do, Firmino wasn't able to do that, right? But personally, I think if Gabriel Jesus takes one more step, because the one thing about Gabriel Jesus' career is he hasn't actually had that much playing time relative to, like, he's 26, but he hasn't played the way a normal 26-year-old who's as talented as he is would have played.
Mm-hmm.
He played much. Maybe there's a step he takes, and I think he gets even better. Then he's the striker to go. But I do feel like if there was ever a chance, by the way, my answer to what position would you, if you had all the money to go at one guy, it would be striker for me. Because like you said,
we already have like two strikers.
No, I understand. You
like
have
backup,
right? But what was something you said?
Oh yeah,
always prefer to spend on a forward, and I totally
like,
agree with that. If I'm gonna spend 80 to 100 million, it's gonna be on goals.
Yeah,
to me. But I accept, like, as you like, if you sign Caicedo or Rice or whoever it is, like,
I was trying to be a little realistic with the answer, because obviously you take Osimhen, right? Like, I said that as well. Like, if you have an opportunity to get Osimhen, you take Osimhen. Like, no matter thinking about Balogun or Nketiah or Jesus and how that works out. But I think even if Osimhen played, Jesus would still play. Like, he'd probably play on the right or the left.
He would. Of course, he'd definitely be part of the squad. Yeah.
Yeah,
but
but
he'd be more in his City role than he would be in what he is now, where he's the guy starting every week. Don't
Yeah.
you think? Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, Abdul,
But
what do you think?
I still do think, like, even this season, we've challenged City with a Jesus type who was
Right.
out for many months. And I think if he was there, we still would have. I think a lot of those results would have been different, which is like a whole alternate reality. But I think we've shown that Jesus can win you a league or get you competing for the league, period, like all we've already seen. But yeah.
Abdul, what do you think?
Honestly, like, I mean, if we decided, oh, let's go get Osimhen, we spent 100 and whatever million on him. Okay, cool. I'm not saying no to Osimhen, obviously, but the thing is, for me, it's about whether or not the player is top quality, whether you feel the player offers you so much in whatever category, whatever area, whatever system. If he gives you a lot, it's like that's all that matters. Does Jesus give us a lot? Absolutely. Is Jesus good enough for us to win the league? Yeah, we could still win the league with Jesus. So, I mean, we could have won it with Eddie up front or with Truss up front. It's possible, but I think for us, this is more so about whether or not our squad is good enough to beat City over 38 games. It might not be, or it might be. But again, like, I think with Jesus, if you're going to replace Jesus, you need somebody that will offer you world-class ability. Because Jesus is, for me, he's probably world-class or borderline world-class. So if you're going to replace him, you get world-class. That's it. And Seaman is world-class. Maybe somebody else will come along and be world-class in a few years. Or you might go after like a very raw but really good player, like we've been linked with Højlund from Atalanta. Ferguson just signed a new deal at Brighton, but he's highly rated. But those guys obviously are quite young.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of a player who's like 24, 25, 26, 27, not many are better than Jesus up front.
Yeah.
So if you need to win the title, you need a top squad anyway. So no, I wouldn't replace Jesus quite yet. If Arteta decides that's it, go all out for Osimhen. Okay, cool. I'm not gonna complain. But I don't think we have to, you know what I mean?
So my last question is probably the biggest debate any of us have had about Arsenal this season is Rob Holding. Okay, so since Rob Holding came in, 5 games, right? You have scored 12 goals and conceded 9. In that time, you've created 11 expected goals and conceded 9.7 expected goals, which basically means you're scoring as much as you're supposed to and conceding as much as you're supposed to, right? So everything is like right baseline. In the 5 games before Rob Holding, so just like to take a random 5-game sample, but when he wasn't starting, you guys scored 15 goals and conceded 4. And you were created 11.7 expected goals. So very, very similar. Attack is almost creating the exact same expected goals, but conceded 4.3 expected goals, which means almost half what it is now with Holding, right? So we've all spoken about it. So let's state the premise of our argument. Our argument is, yes, he absolutely and unquestionably makes you worse as a team, right? You have less control of the field when he's on the pitch because his passing ability is so much less, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's all agreed upon. My question is, how much blame can you put on him, right? Given that you know his limitations and he knows his limitations, he plays like he knows his limitations, right? How much blame can you put on him? And at what point you have to make changes? Because you have signed Kivior, who I understand is left-footed and all that kind of stuff. But at what point is he too detrimental? If he is as detrimental as that, do you have to change?
As you said, we know his limitations. He knows his limitations. The entire team knows his limitations because, like, Partey is dropping way back to grab the ball. Zinchenko is grabbing way back, and we're getting squeezed a lot more. So I think it's like a ripple effect. And it's harder to delineate like how many goals are we conceding now, how many chances are we conceding now just because of this one thing, because it's like a thing that like affects the entire team almost. But like as you said, we've scored to a still a really good rate.
Mhm.
Pretty much the same, like
Yeah.
you'd say.
Yeah.
Because he's not that bad in possession. He's pretty decent. He just like against Liverpool, I think it showed the most where when there's air balls, he hoofs it before like
Yeah.
trying to
His first
actually
instinct is to get rid.
yeah like an old school like okay out of our area, and he plays long passes way more than a Saliba would.
Mhm.
So I think it's like a ripple effect. It's not only him; it's also Tomiyasu being out and not reverting back to our old back four, and it's also as you said, like there are some players you can blame.
Mhm.
I think Arsenal fans are a little try to shy away from that because like we've seen this very team be amazing all season, so it's hard to like, oh, why are some players not performing? It must be holding.
Yeah.
But like I think yeah, definitely you could point the finger at Zinchenko in some points. You could point at Partey. I think the most like he's even before when Saliba was there, he was a little dodgy.
Mhm.
I'd say. And he also has limitations. I think basically what Saliba does so well is to manage those limitations because he's so good. I think he's like top one center back potential,
Yeah.
been the top three center back this league this season.
Mhm.
So I think it's more of what we're missing with Saliba than actually Holding's limitations. And I do think there are some players who have underperformed in that regard too. Like even Ramsdale's mistake, he's been great too before
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
So I'm not even a point like that he's one of the faults. But like, what can Holding do when like
Apparently, he needs to just like wave his hand, like,
yeah
please
no,
pass me the ball. Right?
I think like even if Saliba was there, I think Ramsdale would try to play.
Yeah.
We play that pass all the time. I think he just like lost concentration. Like
Yeah.
that pass we played to the midfield works like every other game, and
Mhm.
one time it could not work out. Um, I think a lot of it's like outcome bias. Like against Liverpool, we were fine that first half,
Exactly. That's
right? Like we were fine. I think if we didn't concede that last goal in the first half, and that whole like momentum of like we shut the whole stadium out. Like they were so quiet before that last goal at the end.
Mhm.
So if we just managed to keep it 2-0 that halftime, I feel like this whole script would like be different. Like we wouldn't be talking about like bottling leads and stuff. Even against West Ham, we were fine.
Yeah.
With Holding. So like it's a lot of scapegoating, as you said. Um, but definitely we do lose a lot of control. At West Ham, I think a little bit. At West Ham and Liverpool in that second half, maybe with Saliba, we would manage that game state way better. But yeah,
Yeah. My thing with him, my thing with backups when they come in, has always been the same. In that I can't expect more from a backup than I know he's capable of. Right.
mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'm at fault. Sometimes I feel bad for the less talented players, right? And I excuse them because at the end of the day, like this, like Rob Holding, you watch him and he's on the ball. It's like, and he hoofs it. It's like this is his allotment in life. This is what his ability allows him to do. You know what I'm saying? Like that's it. He's 27 or whatever he is. Like he's just set in what he's allowed to do, right? Or what he can do. And when you put him on the pitch,
He's improved too. To be fair to him, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
He, like I said, he's perfectly fine. He could easily start for a couple other teams in the league, right? And he's definitely a squad player for most of the league, right? Like he's fine. He's fine. A lot of people in my mentions were like, "Oh, he's a championship player." I'm like, man, you guys don't even know what a championship player looks like if it's like him, because he's completing 90% of his passes. I'm like, that's not a championship player. Sorry.
Yeah.
If a center back is under pressure, which all center backs are on in the Premier League, and they can pass at that high of a rate, they're not a championship center back. But like, he has limitations, and you know his limitations when you put him on the field. You know what he's going to give and what he's going to take. And at a certain point, and I've said this about Milan when they've had injuries. We had an injury to our goalkeeper, and our backup goalkeeper is horrific. It's flat out awful, right?
That guy's
with
bad.
the ball and shot stopping, right? And it's a problem. And a couple games into it, I give you the players were frustrated. Tomori is shouting at him, all this kind of stuff. Because you're not used to having somebody you can't trust behind you. In this case, somebody beside you. But 2 games into it, it's like, you know what he's going to do in each situation. And it's up to you as the better player, as the star of the team. Now you guys have to elevate to help him, to compensate. Because that's at the end of the day, like, you can't go 5 games and concede this many chances and then be like, oh, well, what can we do? We have him. It's like, but the season's on the line. Like, let's go. Figure some shit out. You know what I'm saying? Elevate. Like you said, Thomas Partey can help him out by just being better, by losing the ball, by stopping losing the ball in such advantageous situations, right? Even Gabriel has been put in some shit positions, but he's also given away a penalty. And yeah, like in the second goal against Southampton, like, okay, Holding doesn't pressure the ball, but we know he's not going to pressure the ball, which means Alcaraz is going to get time to play the ball in behind. So you have to be aware of Theo Walcott, who can only do one thing on the damn pitch. All he can do is run in behind. You know what I'm saying? With his pace. Like, you also have these guys are the guys you depend on. You're not depending on Rob Holding. You're depending on him. You're depending on Gabriel and Thomas Partey and Ramsdale and Zinchenko. Those are the guys that you live and die with. And they have to elevate their game when somebody else can't bring it. You know?
I think like Gabriel tried, especially like against Liverpool. He was so good. Like
he's great. I've always been a Gabriel fan. He's so good.
Yeah.
Like, it's a
Southampton one is hard to blame.
No, I'm not singling him out specifically. I'm just saying on that one goal. But like in general, everybody has to pull together. It's not Gabriel has to give 50% more. He has to give 5% more, and Thomas has to give 5% more, and Zinchenko, and so on. And if you put all that together, you keep it moving. Because like we've said, you guys still score, which means you're all like you scored 2 goals against Liverpool, 2 goals against West Ham, 3 goals against Southampton, which means you are always in a position to win games, right? Scoring goals is the hardest thing to do. Keeping them out is not. You know, you're always in a position to win games, and you were up 2-0 in both those games. All you have to do is control, and at least minimize. And if everybody's saying, "Oh, we can't keep possession the same way," it's like, well, you can defend without keeping possession. I understand that it's harder to adjust to that towards the end of the season, but man, like, you were so close against Liverpool. You were so close to just seeing it out. West Ham should have been the same thing. Like, you just have to see it out sometimes.
I think I agree pretty much for the most part. It kind of is ripple effect, and it's unfortunate on Holding because realistically he wouldn't have been playing if either one of Tomiyasu or Saliba were fit. Obviously, since both were injured, there was he kind of had to come in. First, I will say I don't expect any changes, and at this point, I don't know if I really want like a big change because we played 5 games with him. If Arteta really wanted to change Holding, he would have done it. Palace, Leeds, maybe Liverpool, possibly West Ham, definitely Southampton. Because considering that Holding was very bad against West Ham, but in the other games he was like okay or not that great. But West Ham was the one game where I thought he was generally like tragic. Like he was struggling against Antonio, he was struggling on the ball. We were defending very deep, which comes as a consequence of having him on the pitch. I don't attribute everything to him because honestly, if you look at the goals we've conceded, rather than forget about the chances we were letting in, or Liverpool had like 4 plus XG, and a chunk of it was the Salah penalty. But even if you take away that penalty, it's about 3 XG or something like that. And I don't attribute all of that to Holding, obviously, because the first goal, that's not really down to Holding too much. He could have been a bit tighter to Gakpo, but it's still not really his fault. And then the second goal, I can't really blame him for that. Both West Ham goals, I don't really put too much blame on him. And Southampton, the third goal, he was beaten too easily at the near post, and in regards to like the counter attack, Odegaard and Partey gave the ball away between each other, but Holding was far too deep. The only problem with Holding being too deep is that Saliba oftentimes is a bit deeper than Gabriel. Like in his average position, he's oftentimes the deepest centre back. But that's because he likes to mop up and because he has a recovery pace, so that even if he's super high on the pitch, he can just race back. in the last 5 games, we've won 2 and drawn 3 with holding. Liverpool, we were almost about to win. West Ham, we were 2-0 up, and realistically, we should have won that match. And then Southampton, we fell 1-0 down after 27 seconds. But we still could have won that game, even through all of the chaos that happened throughout that match. We still could have won it. Like Trossard hit the bar in like the 93rd minute. So we could have won all the past 3 games with holding, but I would still be saying, oh, man, we're playing worse with him. And it's not even his fault. It's just a consequence of the fact that against Southampton, like Partey was dropping deeper than he should be. Against West Ham, Holding was struggling out wide against Antonio. Against Liverpool, we kind of, but a lot of other players were struggling on the ball. Like Partey was quite annoying in that second half because he kept trying to play a defense splitting pass instead of just keeping the ball for a few seconds. And the West Ham was another issue where we just couldn't keep the ball very well. We're giving the ball away a lot, including Holding. So a lot of it is down to Holding, but the actual goals we've conceded, not so much. It's just the fact that we're just playing worse. And if you are playing worse, your defense becomes more vulnerable. If your defense is more vulnerable, you're more lows or just to not win games. So if Saliba was playing, maybe we get 2 wins in the draw. Maybe we win all 3 games. Who knows? But it's just the fact that we're playing far worse rather than the results are bad, because we still should have won at least the last 2 games, if not one at Anfield. So, but and now again, like there's not really any time to make changes. Like if he plays Kivior tomorrow, I'll be thinking, why couldn't he just done this a few games ago? Get him up to speed. Because now, like if he throws Jorginho in, Jorginho I could be a right back at all, but at least Jorginho can come into a game and I don't have to worry about whether he's up to speed. But with Kivior, I'll worry about that. But I wouldn't have done it. Imagine if against Palace, the first game, Kivior started. I don't think anyone would have said, why is he doing this? Everyone would have been like, okay, he doesn't want to play Holding. Fine, whatever. Maybe against Leeds. Okay, he doesn't want to play Holding anymore. But, or maybe if he did it against West Ham or Southampton. But now it's too late. So I expect Holding to play tomorrow. I hope he has a game against Holland. I'm scared. But yeah, realistically speaking, I think the only real change is probably going to be if Xhaka, if he's not fit, Vieira will probably come in again. I would like to see Trossard maybe in midfield, but yeah, it's just basically whether Xhaka's fit or not. If Xhaka's fit, he starts, and it's basically the same 11 as West Ham.
So to preview the City Arsenal game, let's do a combined 11. I feel like ours are going to be mostly similar, but I feel like let's see the differences. So in goal, we both have Ramsdale, I assume, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'll say I have 2 versions of this team. So I have the version of what I would actually pick in any game, any situation, and what I can pick is like based on this actual season, like who has performed the best. So at right back, normally I would take Kyle Walker because of experience and the things I know. And I'm sorry, but I hate the center back at fullback thing. I abhor it. Okay, but Ben White has been way better this season. So
and Ben White's been just a right back now, pretty much.
No, I know, but still, but like I get it. He is very good on the ball. He's really, really good on the ball. Right?
That bro's like in the box. No, like he's been pushing up and overlapping, underlapping as much as a traditional. Right back
he's not Dan Burn at left back, but like he's also not a full on right back. Just cause like he's a center back. He's big. He's stocky. He's a little slower. You know. It's just like I don't know. I always want, a fullback. As I played fullback, I always want a fullback at fullback. Anyway, but Ben White for sure gets the spot. At center back, I would go John Stones and Gabriel. You would go same?
Like Stones has to be there, so either Saliba or Gabriel, like one of them. Yeah.
Who would you pick between the 2?
I'd go Saliba.
Because I saw a few Arsenal fans switch in the middle of the season.
Yeah. I think they're really close for sure, but I think Saliba's a bit better. Yeah.
Okay, I actually agree with that. But I'm factoring in the injury, so I put Gabriel. Left back, I want to see who you have.
It's Zinchenko. Like who else? Not Ake.
I have Ake.
No.
Okay, but first of all, listen, just hear me out.
But center back at fullback.
Yeah, but no. Okay, first of all, he's more of a left back than he was a center back to begin with.
But like he's way more center back at fullback than like say White is at right back.
You think so?
I think so. Yeah, Ake
Okay.
is like he's way clunkier than White on the ball and way like
On the
he's
ball, yes,
fine
but
in
not
things.
defensively. He could go 1-on-1 with a guy.
Yeah, so can Ben White.
No, I know, but okay. When I mean like, yeah, I agree he's clunkier on the ball, but that's because Ben White's amazing on the ball. But 1-on-1, if I had like when Calabria was 1-on-1 with Kvaratskhelia, like that's a fullback. He's gonna get in the stance. He's gonna do all that. Ben White is a defensive right back in the flow of the game. But I don't know. I have to be fair. One of the credits to you guys is that you rarely ever see Ben White 1-on-1 with a winger. You know, that's great coaching that he never gets put in that situation. But I feel like Ake would be better than that. I have Ake also because they're basically similar. Ake would usually lose this race for me because of games played, but he's basically similar to Zinchenko in that. So I have Ake personally.
Okay. I don't know. Zinchenko, I think like he's had a little weak spell like last 4 weeks, but he's been like one of our best players. I mean, you could say that for all of our 11, to be fair.
Yeah.
But he's been amazing, and I think what he brings in possession is way more than like in the aggregate. They don't do the same thing. Is way more than Ake, but Ake is way better defensively. So I guess you picked in that regard. But regarding Ben White 1v1, I think he's very good 1v1 as well. But it is rare to see him in that position.
Yeah. I think that's probably where our differences end because I think we'll have Rodri at defensive midfield. Mm-hmm. We're doing 4-3-3, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Rodri in defensive midfield, De Bruyne and Odegaard as the two, Saka, Haaland, and Martinelli as the attack, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. All right. Well, that's the episode. Thank you, guys, Mashir and Abdul, for joining for the second time. Hopefully we'll do this again, another Arsenal episode. Maybe you guys will be the champions by then. And if you do win the whole thing, we'll definitely do a third one.